Padme gave birth to Luke and Leia before Order 66, before Anakin's fall, before everything went sideways. I know what you're thinking. But the whole reason Anakin turned was because of those nightmares about Padme dying in childbirth. Exactly. And that's precisely why this scenario is absolutely wild. We're talking about a single change that could have prevented the Empire, saved the Jedi, and completely rewritten Star Wars as we know it. So let's break this down, because trust me, this rabbit hole goes deep. First, let's get our facts straight about what actually happened in Revenge of the Sith. According to the novelization and the Clone Wars Season 7, Padme was already several months pregnant when Anakin returned from the Outer Rim sieges. She tells him about the pregnancy right at the start of the movie. And here's the kicker. The entire film, from the Battle of Coruscant to Order 66, takes place over just about 10 days to 2 weeks max. Some old canon sources said it was only 6 days, but even at 2 weeks, that's an insanely compressed timeline. Now, Padme was clearly showing by the time she tells Anakin, which means she'd been pregnant for months already. She just couldn't tell him because he'd been away fighting on the front lines. The woman literally waited until she was like 7 or 8 months pregnant to drop the news. Can you imagine? Hey honey, welcome home from war. Oh, by the way, surprise. But here's what matters. Anakin's fall to the dark side happens fast. Within days of learning about the pregnancy, he starts having those nightmares. Palpatine swoops in with his Tragedy of Darth Plagueis speech. Anakin gets desperate, and boom, Order 66 happens before Padme even goes into labor. The twins are born literally hours after everything falls apart. So now let's flip the script. What if Padme had given birth 2, 3, maybe 4 weeks earlier? What if when Anakin came back to Coruscant, she was already holding their babies? This changes everything. Think about it. The entire catalyst for Anakin's turn was his fear of losing Padme. He had these horrifying visions of her dying in childbirth, and Palpatine manipulated that fear like a fiddle. He basically told Anakin, hey kid, only the dark side can save your wife. Trust me bro, it's totally gonna work. But if Padme's already given birth, then she's fine. If Luke and Leia are already here, healthy and alive, and Padme's recovering normally, that nightmare becomes meaningless. It's like having a prophetic dream about failing a test you already took and passed. The threat's gone. The fear loses its power. And here's the thing about Anakin. Yes, he was already showing signs of darkness. The Tusken Raider massacre, his increasing frustration with the Jedi Council, his growing attachment to Palpatine. But the final push, the thing that made him actually kneel before Sidious and say, I will do whatever you ask, was 100% about saving Padme from that vision. No vision fulfillment, no immediate crisis. Anakin doesn't make that desperate leap. Let's game this out. Scenario 1. Anakin comes home, meets his kids, and Padme's healthy. Palpatine still makes his move, right? He's been planning this for decades. He still reveals himself as Darth Sidious, still tries to turn Anakin. But without that immediate, visceral fear of Padme's death hanging over him, Anakin's decision-making changes completely. Remember, in the actual timeline, Anakin tells Mace Windu about Palpatine being a Sith Lord. He does the right thing. But then he freaks out because Mace is about to kill Palpatine, and Anakin thinks, wait, if Palpatine dies, so does my chance to save Padme. That's why he intervenes. But in our timeline, Padme's already safe. She's home with their newborns. Maybe she's even there when Anakin discovers the truth about Palpatine. Can you imagine Anakin going home that night, looking at his sleeping wife and his babies, and then having to make the choice? The man literally became Darth Vader because he thought he could prevent death. But if death's already been prevented naturally, what's Palpatine's pitch? Join me, and I'll teach you to save people from dying, even though your wife just gave birth successfully without any Sith powers needed. That's a much tougher sell. Plus, let's talk about practical matters. In the original timeline, Padme's pregnancy was still a secret. Nobody knew Anakin was the father. But if she'd given birth earlier, that secret would have been way harder to keep. Babies don't exactly stay quiet, someone would have noticed. Maybe Obi-Wan finally confronts Anakin directly. Maybe the Council finds out. And you know what? That might have been the best thing that could have happened. Sure, Anakin might have been expelled from the Jedi Order, but he'd be alive, he'd be himself, and he'd be with his family. Is that really a bad ending? Now let's say Palpatine doesn't give up that easily. He's a manipulative genius. Maybe he tries a different angle. Without the death visions, he pivots to Anakin's other fears. His fear of the Jedi controlling him, his frustration with not being granted the rank of Master, his anger at the Council for not trusting him. Palpatine could emphasize how the Jedi would take his children away, train them, separate them from their father. And that's actually a valid fear. The Jedi Order does take children from their families. If the Council found out about Luke and Leia, and they're showing Force sensitivity, which they absolutely would be, given their lineage, what happens? So maybe Anakin still feels trapped. Maybe he still sees the dark side as his only path to keeping his family together and safe. The difference is, it's a choice made from a different place. Not desperate panic, but calculated protection. This could actually make for an even more tragic fall in a way, because he'd be making this choice deliberately, with his family alive and well, thinking he's doing what's best for them. Classic Anakin, good intentions, catastrophic execution. But here's where I think things could go differently. If Padme's already given birth, she's politically active again. She's not sidelined by pregnancy. She's back in the Senate when Palpatine makes his move to reorganize it into the Empire. And Padme was fierce in the Senate. She was leading the opposition against Palpatine's power grabs, with Padme as a vocal opponent, with her evidence that Palpatine manipulated the war, and with Anakin potentially standing with her instead of against her. Maybe the delegation of 2000 actually accomplishes something. Maybe they successfully block Palpatine's transformation of the Republic. Maybe democracy wins. Let's think bigger. No Vader means no Empire as we know it. Palpatine's still powerful, but without Vader as his enforcer, without Anakin leading the march on the Jedi Temple, Order 66 looks very different. More Jedi survive. Maybe Obi-Wan and Anakin actually fight together against Palpatine. The Clone Wars might end differently. The galaxy doesn't fall into darkness. Luke and Leia grow up with their parents. They're trained in the Force properly by Jedi who love them. No desert farm for Luke. No fake backstory for Leia. They're raised as Skywalkers, knowing their heritage, learning to use their power responsibly. And here's something wild to consider. If Anakin remains in the light, the prophecy about bringing balance to the Force plays out completely differently. Maybe he fulfills it by stopping Palpatine without falling first. Maybe he raises the next generation of Jedi, his own children, to create that balance. The whole saga changes. No Death Star, no rebellion as we know it. No desperate last stand at Yavin or Hoth or Endor. It's a totally different galaxy. Of course, this is all speculation. The beauty of Star Wars is that it shows us how one choice, one moment, one fear can cascade into destiny. The tragedy of Anakin Skywalker isn't just that he fell. It's that he fell trying to prevent something that might never have happened the way he feared. If Padme had given birth just a few weeks earlier, everything changes. The nightmare loses its power. The prophecy rewrites itself, and maybe, just maybe, Anakin Skywalker never becomes Darth Vader. But that's the gut punch of it all. In the actual timeline, Padme does survive childbirth. Medically, she's fine. She dies of a broken heart because the man she loved became a monster. Anakin's greatest fear came true, but not the way he imagined. He didn't fail to save her from childbirth. He destroyed her by turning to the dark side, the very thing he did to save her. That's the real tragedy. And that's why this what if is so powerful. The timing of those births didn't just affect plot logistics, it determined the fate of the entire galaxy. What do you think? Would Anakin still have fallen? Would the Empire still have risen? Drop your theories in the comments. I want to hear how you think this plays out. May the Force be with you, always.